Today we're going to review how to read and understand your college financing plan. This is what your college financing plan may look like. We're going to break down each section of this plan together and hopefully answer any questions you have about what the numbers or costs on this plan mean. There's a glossary at the bottom of your college financing plan. It goes over the definitions of some of the technical terms, but we'll discuss them together as we go through how to read this college financing plan together. The cost of attendance is a breakdown of all the possible costs associated with attending school for 1 year. Please keep in mind this is not your bill. Your actual bill will be sent out to you over the summer. It's usually available in mid-July. The cost of attendance is actually going to just break down all the possible costs associated with school, but the only things that you'll be billed for will be, of course, your tuition and fees. That's for all students. But if you're commuting to school, that's pretty much it. Nothing else on this list here, like the housing and meals, books and supplies, or transportation will be billed to you. If you're living on campus, you're going to use the first and second lines on this cost of attendance. So the tuition and fees and the housing and meals estimate. This is a pretty good idea of what your bill will be for the year, but we actually do bills in semesters. So you'll take the first 2 lines if you're planning to live on campus and divide it by 2. That's pretty much what you can expect to pay for each semester of school during your first year. The final charges for your housing and meals will be based on your room assignment and the meal plan you select, but we found this is a pretty good accurate estimate to use. The grants and scholarships section is going to show you the amount of aid available to you that does not need to be repaid. Please understand that not all students will qualify for this type of aid. The federal and state grants are based on your financial need, which is determined by the FAFSA. We at the school do not have control over what you're eligible to get when it comes to federal or state grants. And also the scholarships from the institution, they are determined by the admissions office. All applicants are screened for scholarships when they apply. If you are not awarded a scholarship at this time, please keep in mind when you start school, you have the opportunity to apply every fall semester for what are called foundation scholarships. And those are something that you'll be available to apply to for starting your first fall semester. If you're accepted for one of those scholarships, it will go towards your subsequent year. So if you apply during your fall of your freshman year, and if you are a recipient, it'll go towards your sophomore year bill. So this next section is going to discuss in more detail how your college financing plan determines your net costs. So as you know, we just talked about the estimated cost of attendance. The math that this form does is going to take the entire cost of attendance, even the things we talked about that you don't get billed for, like the transportation, the books and supplies, and the other educational costs. We don't bill you for it, but the way this plan does the math, it actually factors in those expenses. So we're going to go into a couple of examples, but just for simplicity's sake, the net cost is just the total of your estimated cost of attendance. It will subtract out any grant or scholarship money you may have received, and then it will come up with what you're expected to pay for school. So as you can see in this example, this is for a residential student, so someone who's living on campus. You're not going to be billed for the books and supplies, transportation, or the other educational costs. So really what your net cost should be is going to be your tuition and fees and your housing and meals. We'll subtract out any grant or scholarship money. So look at your letter, you can do that now. And then that's going to be what your net costs are for the year for a student who's living on campus. This example here is similar, but this is for a student who's not living on campus, so a commuting student. Your costs, as we discussed before, will really only be the tuition and fees. So you'll take that number, subtract out any grants or scholarships you may have on your college financing plan, and that's a better estimate of what your net costs will be, of what you would need to pay in order to cover your bill for one academic year. So now that you know what your bill is going to be, we want to talk about different ways to pay for it. The first area for options for paying for school on your college financing plan is going to show work options. We call this a federal work study program. This amount is going to be zero for all students. The reason for that is because students need to find a position on campus in order to be eligible for this type of funding. The funds are also limited. The last reason why we don't typically include this on our letters at this point is because it does not get applied towards your bill. When students participate in this program, the funds are paid to them directly through a biweekly paycheck. So it's something the student may earn early on in the academic year, or it may take them the entire academic year to earn all of this funding. So it really won't help the student pay their bill at the end of the day by the time the bill is due. So it's usually used for other school-related expenses and spending money throughout the year. This section is going to go over student loan options. By completing a FAFSA, most incoming first-year students automatically qualify for $5,500 in federal student loans. Federal student loans do not need to be paid on while the student's in school. They'll start getting their bills about 6 months after they graduate, or they leave school, or drop below half-time enrollment. There's two types of loans. Not everyone qualifies for both types of loans. So for example, the subsidized loan listed here, that loan is subsidized, meaning the government is paying the interest on that loan while the student is in school. And the unsubsidized portion, the interest accrues once the loan is dispersed. But in both cases, these loans do not require payment while the student is in school. And again, the standard amount for students is $5,500 a year for first-year students. There's really no way for the student to request an increase of that. That's the standard amount that students are eligible for their first year. Again, not everyone will qualify for a subsidized loan. So if you're looking at your college financing plan and you see you're being offered $5,500 and it's all unsubsidized, that means that based on the FAFSA and the information that was calculated, that is the only type of loan that you qualified for. So I have to say, the other options section of the letter, it is the kind of the hardest area for us to explain to families. So the family contribution that you're looking at, your number will be different than the one here on this example. But essentially, when you fill out the FAFSA, all the different questions you answer, they're used to compute this one number, which is called your family contribution, or here in financial aid, we call it the expected family contribution, or EFC. This is the number that is really used to drive the types of aid that you qualify for. So if you remember back in the grant section, I had mentioned that not everyone qualifies for it. A lot of times this number on here is what we use to determine if you're eligible for a loan, for grants or different types of like subsidized loan funding. For the example here of paying your bill, this number is really not relevant. We're going to go into some of the other options that are more meaningful, which I like to call the 3 Ps. So the 3 Ps are the payment plan, the Parent Plus loan, and a private loan. So the payment plan is as basic as it sounds. Whatever amount is not covered by the student's aid or loans that they accept is going to be divided into 5 payments. You make your first installment when you enroll in the plan, and then the remaining 4 payments are typically due on the first of each month after. There is a one-time fee for enrolling in the plan each semester. This is not always a feasible option for all families, so some families also look at other options such as a Parent Plus loan or private loan. Some families do a little bit of private loan or Parent Plus loan and a little bit of payment plan. It's really a personal decision of what makes most sense for you and your family, but we're actually going to go in and dive down to what the difference is between a Parent Plus loan and a private loan, so you can figure out early in advance what types of loans you want to start researching. So we're going to talk about the differences between the Parent Plus loan and the private loan. So the Parent Plus loan is a loan that you are borrowing from the Department of Education. It's a credit-based loan, just like the private loan. But the main difference between the private loan and Parent Plus is that the Parent Plus loan requires the parent to be the borrower. This loan is not in the student's name. They will not get a bill for it. A private loan usually has the student on there as the primary borrower, and a parent or really any other credit-worthy adult could co-sign. Typically, these loans do have options to defer the payments while the student is in school. This can vary based on your lender if you go with a private loan. So just check as you're doing your research and seeing what your options are in regards to payments while the student is still in school. One difference is that the Parent Plus loan does have possible options for loan forgiveness due to permanent disability of the parent or if anything were to happen to the student. That's not always the case with private loans, but there are different lenders out there. So just check as you're doing your research what those types of flexibility for payments and forgiveness that may be available. The Parent Plus loan also has a little bit more of a quicker application process. Typically, you can complete the application about 10-15 minutes, and then if approved, the loan comes to the school and can be applied onto the account in as little as 1 or 2 business days, depending on the timing of when that comes in. The private loans, again, you're working with any lender that's out there, so it does depend based on which company you go with. But a lot of times, once it's approved, it does take at least a couple of weeks before that funding will show up on your account. If you're doing this well in advance, there's no problem with waiting. There's no rush, but just something to consider if you're in a time crunch. One last thing is that if a parent is denied a Parent Plus loan, there could be additional funding available to the student. If you recall earlier, we talked about that $5,500 that is offered to most incoming first-year students. If a parent applies for a Plus loan and is denied the loan, the student would then be offered $9,500 in student loans instead. So that's an increase of $4,000 per year for the student that the student could consider accepting. And the last little tip is how to apply for these loans. So for the Parent Plus loan, you can apply online at www.studentaid.gov. Please make sure if you're doing a Parent Plus loan that the parent is signing in with their federal student aid ID or FAFSA login. We do get cases a lot of times where the student logs in or their information is saved and you can't borrow a loan for yourself. Sorry, students, your parent has to do it. So make sure you check who's logging in. And then for private loans, there's a search tool on our website. The website for that is elmselect.com, and that is a tool that allows you to search and compare different loans. You're welcome to use any lender you choose. And just to reiterate, the Parent Plus loan and private loan is really a personal decision. It comes down to what works best for you and your family. If you have any questions, let us know. But there's a lot of information out there, and now is a great time to start considering what works best for you. So one last quick summary of the difference between Parent Plus loan and private loan. The Parent Plus loan may be right for you if you're willing to be the only borrower on the loan, if you are the biological or adoptive parent of the student, if you need the funding sooner rather than later, or if you have a diverse credit history. A private loan may be right for you if you would like the student to be the borrower on the loan as well, if someone other than the parent wishes to co-sign on the loan, and if you're not in a rush to have the loan processed. These are all things to consider. If you have questions, please reach out. We're happy to help you. So if you decide that borrowing additional funding is right for your family, here's just a couple of tips. We really recommend that you borrow for the whole year. When you request a loan, by default, we typically divide the amount that you borrow in half. So half goes towards fall, the second half for spring. We get a lot of questions where, a parent might borrow $1,000, let's say, and they anticipated it to all go towards the fall semester, but they'll notice that they only got $500. That's because a lot of times our system will split the loan in anticipation that you're going to borrow for the whole year. It's also better to borrow for the whole year because it's less credit checks and it's only one application a year. You're not going to have to go back in around the holidays when things are really busy in December and have to apply and worry about the spring bill. So we always say if you can, please borrow for the whole year now. The second half won't pay until the spring semester starts. So it's not like it's paying early and you're accruing extra interest. So it really is to your benefit to borrow for the whole year. In terms of getting the final numbers, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, you don't really get your final fall bill until around July, but we don't want you to wait until you have your bill in hand to apply for these loans. Our office gets really busy over the summer, so our trick is going to be to overestimate your bill, meaning take all the information we provided to you and come up with how much funding you think you need. If you overestimate, you're able to get back what's called a refund, which you can use to pay other school expenses, those books and supplies we talked about. Or if you don't want extra funds, all you have to do is contact us and we can easily decrease the loan to the amount that you're comfortable with. But if you underestimate and you come up short, in most cases, you're going to have to reapply for the loan, which means another application and another credit check, which causes delays. So it's definitely better to apply early. Most loans are available by June, so you can start applying actively during June. And again, that's before you can expect to receive your bill. So when you're doing your math, just estimate a little bit higher and you should be all set. If you ever have any questions about, financial aid, please reach out to us. We're here to help you. We just really hope this was informative and helpful for you to learn how to read your college financing plan and understand how to personalize it and tailor it for what costs you expect for school.